Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the July 17th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. My name is Sina Nejad, and I have the honor of chairing the commission. If you would, please call the roll.
Chairman Najad,
Here.
Commissioner Beatty,
Present.
Commissioner Jabbar,
Present.
Commissioner Jabia, Commissioner Javid, Commissioner Linton,
Here.
Commissioner Macon. Here. Commissioner Noyola,
Here.
and Commissioner Senegar. Thank you.
We do have a quorum. The staff has sent out the minutes of the previous meeting. I would entertain the motion or look at any changes or proposals you have.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And in opposition, the ayes have it. We're going to get started with our one and only case on the regular meeting, and that is PZ 2023261.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
File PC 2023-261 is a request by Zach Rowe of Lead Engineering, LLC, requesting an abandonment of Doctor's Drive and a portion of 15th Street. The Texas Department of Transportation expansion of the Interstate 10 East Tex interchange has taken the front portion of the property at 1000 IH 10 North. Due to the expansion, Classic Acura will demolish their existing showroom. In fact, I think they've already demolished it, and reconstruct further back on the property. A portion of Doctor's Drive was abandoned in the past to accommodate their property. To accommodate overflow parking for this property. The abandonment of the remaining portion of Doctor's Drive and the north portion of 15th Street will help accommodate their new building. CenterPoint and Water Utilities have stated that they have utilities located in these rights-of-way, and so planning staff recommends approval of the abandonment with the retention of a general utility easement. Is that correct? And items were sent to all interested parties. I do have a few slides for you. The property outlined in red would be the portions of Doctor's Drive and 15th Street that are proposed for abandonment. And this is a drawing submitted by the applicant showing those portions of the street that they propose for abandonment. This is the picture. This is looking north on 15th Street to the portion of the street that's to be abandoned. And this is Doctor's Drive, the portion that is remaining, and they're asking for abandonment. I've also included the properties on either side of that portion of Doctor's Drive. As you can see, this is a structure that's been demolished, and you can see they were in the process of demolishing the structure for Acura on the north side of the property. So, do you have any questions?
For Adina? Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant in the audience? Good afternoon, Mr. Rowe. If you would state your name and address for the record and give us any additional information you have.
Zach Rowe, 11th Engineering, 3250 Freeway. As Clifton said, next on to the front, in there, which is classic showroom. They also demolished the building. So in order to build a new showroom, looking to highways and the interior of the inlet, reconstruct the car lot and build a new showroom.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rowe? Thank you, sir. Okay, so we've heard from the staff, and we also heard from the applicant. There is no public hearing required in here, so I would entertain a motion on the application.
Motion to approve file PZ 2023-261.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? The ayes have it, thank you. Let it be known that this is the last meeting that Ms. Josie is going to be with us. I want to thank her for her service for all the years that I've been here, and we appreciate everything that you have done. Thank you very much, ma'am. With that said, this concludes our regular meeting. The joint meeting is going to be started with the Honorable Mayor Roy West.
Actually, we will not start the meeting until 3:15 because that's the posted time. So if you'd like to take a recess, you can do that.
I tell you what, since you say all this stuff, why don't you just, it's okay. Go ahead. We wait. So whoever wants to volunteer to entertain us, raise your hand.
Good to see you. I didn't know they had a time limit on when they could start the, part. What happened if we had ran over on the first part? Good to be missed. Good to be missed. I think so. Even for 90 days. Even for 90 days. Very flexible. They pay me in dollars. When I he left it. That's what it's at. I'll be around in and out here. I'm gonna give up everything I do in the community. I was looking for something more to do. There were 2 nights. That was okay. I'm very proactive. I like to stay busy. My doctor told me I was in good health and I keep my mind and body. Yes, I had to go to massive. Oh, my Dr. Oz and Secretary of the Hospital. Time. 2 and 36 hours. First time to do the surgery. Third time. Bleeding out. You won't find out. So within 36 hours, 3 times. Embarrassing. Yes, I had to. Traumatic. Recovery. And then I was healthy. There wasn't any damage. No damage. And I'm naive. You like to eat like I do. Do you know what my cardiologist said? He said, if it tastes good, don't eat it. That's not good for you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Doing, man?
See you. How are you? Good, us too.
But I get to see the best one. You going home rest? That's no retirement.
I know. She's just relocating.
Relocate. Let me see.
I also had a home phone and I sent it to the accident. The second one to the right place. But I don't have his
What I
email.
shared. He's using this one and also.
Okay.
I shared this one.
Yes. Small.
All right. Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the joint meeting of the Planning and Zoning and the City Council meeting. And we have the Honorable Mayor Roy West get us started.
Yes, sir. Mayor West? Present. Mayor Pro Tem Durio?
Present.
Councilmember Feldshaw?
Present.
Councilmember Turner is absent. Councilmember Neild? Councilmember Getz?
Present.
Councilmember Samuel? Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the joint public hearing of the Planning Commission today. This is a joint meeting forums of both Planning Commission and the City Council. The Planning Commission will vote today to give recommendations to the City Council. The items will then come before the city council for final decision. The only opportunity to speak on these items will be at the meeting today. There will not be time available in public comment when it comes before the council. Again, thank you for coming. Chairman, I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor West. We're going to get started with the first case, PZ 2021-243.
Sorry, I've got a thick file here. Okay, for file PZ 2021-243, Scott Holman and the heirs of the AJ Fazula estate have requested that the city of Beaumont accept maintenance of the private drive east of West Calder Road and north of Baker Road and its infrastructure. The city adopted a process for the conversion of private streets and other infrastructure for public ownership and maintenance a couple of years ago. I'd like to offer a brief recap of our standard process and the situation provided by Chris back in February of 2022 for the sake of our new members and the audience. Standard practice for platting a new subdivision is to have the applicant submit a preliminary plat for review and acceptance by this body. The plat would then be submitted to Public Works for review, subject to city specifications. Once those improvements are made, engineering will inspect the improvements and if built to specifications, then we'll take the improvements, new water, streets, and sewer, to City Council for acceptance, or if in the county, to Commissioner's Court. Then the developer can record the plat and begin selling lots and building houses, resulting in public streets maintained by the city or county, depending on where the development is located. The issue here is that some streets were created with private drives and are private, almost like gated community without gates. Those drives, in most cases, developed a long time ago without the roads and infrastructure being public. It's a common issue, and we see it nationwide. The infrastructure ages and is not repaired, so the property owners eventually approach the community requesting that the city or county take over the maintenance. Typically, most cities, counties do an assessment, then require the infrastructure be brought up to a certain standard. In some cases, the city or county may finance the improvements through a tax or special assessment. I also would like to provide you with a summary of our conveyance guidelines that were adopted a couple of years ago. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years ago. For a private drive subdivision, you must have the majority of the owners that want to apply for the conveyance, which we've already received in this case. Next, the Public Works Director will inspect the street and infrastructure to determine the condition. This has already also occurred. In October of 2021, the Planning Commission reviewed the recommendation by Public Works stating that the pavement was in very poor condition and requires a full rehabilitation. The ditches have been poorly maintained and not graded properly to drain, with driveway culverts that were not set properly. The condition of water and sewer lines was unknown. After some discussion at the October 2021 meeting, the Planning Commission requested a more detailed study of the drainage, water, and sewer situation and minimum improvements needed for acceptance of the neighborhood. That detailed study was presented in February of 2022. The study determined several categories. The first category was for immediate needs. That assessment determined that the water system requires replacement either before or immediately after acceptance of the road rights-of-way. The purpose being to improve fire protection for the development and eliminate the multitude of services running from an extensive bank of meters, all located on West Calder right-of-way. The cost estimate for the improvements has been updated to a current price value of $185,250 to install water lines, service connections, water meters, and fire hydrants. The next category is urgent work. The city would need to set 4 manholes on the sanitary sewer system to provide access to the lines for inspection and cleaning. The estimated cost for this, if performed by the city staff, has been updated to $9,400. The last category is remaining work. Remaining work would be addressed during normal prioritization of scheduled workloads and are listed in no specific order, consisting of excavation of roadside ditches and installation of driveway culverts, bringing them to grade. And the February of 2022 cost estimate for that was $245,000. Replacing the existing 4-inch sewer main with a 6-inch line has been updated to a current cost of $50,000. Finally, rehabilitation of the asphalt roads was estimated in February of 2022, at $212,000. The report gave comments from other departments in review of this application. Fire Marshal Joe Condina reviewed the site. The fire department is concerned with the width and load limits of the current paved streets, private streets. City streets must have a 75,000-pound load limit rating and be wide enough for fire apparatus. Solid Waste comments that Solid Waste provides garbage service to 2425 West Calder Road. But if Solid Waste is to provide service to the residents within the subdivision, improvements would need to be made for maintenance of, maintain the weight of the garbage truck. Furthermore, due to the narrow width of the streets, having no fire hydrants along the streets and load limit concerns, it is recommended, or was at that time recommended by Public Works, to reject the request until upgrades to the streets have been completed. Based on that assessment, staff recommended denial of the application. It should be noted that this road has not been platted. Mr. Holman has begun the process of submitting a preliminary plat for the streets. Due to this submittal, it seemed appropriate to place the item back on the agenda for discussion prior to review of the proposed plat. Ultimately, the Planning Commission will be tasked with recommending approval or denial of this request to City Council, and City Council then will make the final decision to accept or not accept the streets. I have some slides that we can kind of review. The property outlined in red is the existing roadway that has been requested for acceptance by the city. Just a little closer view, and so that you can see where it's located. This is an aerial photograph from 1938 that shows that these streets have been in existence for a while, or the roadways have been there for quite a long time. It looks like they were probably originally part of the Amelia neighborhood, and possibly part of a drilling site where the residents have stayed for the workers stayed for the drilling site. Oops. This is the portion of the plat that has been submitted that we will, at a future date, be presenting to you as a preliminary plat, just to show you what he is submitting. And that is the entire plat to show you. It's actually 2 pieces of property. The H shape that you see, the sideways, or the I guess depending on which angle you're looking at it from, is one piece of property. And then down the east edge of the properties from that most southern street is a drainage. It's a ditch, I believe. Is that correct? And it is owned separately from the rest of the property. So it's 2 pieces of property at this point.
Also, just to clarify, so you have one.
Sir, I'm sorry. I asked you a question, but I apologize. I have some photos of, these are from last year, but I don't anticipate the situation has improved any. These are just some photos looking down the streets of the existing situation to give you an idea of what the area looks like. And that is all I have for you at the moment.
Thank you. Counselor, we're not voting on this today, right? Because she stated that she's going to be preparing another set to be presented to the city council. So what are we looking at today?
What you're looking at today is more of a review so that everybody understands what the situation is, what's going on. I believe what will happen is the preliminary plat will be presented to you for approval, acceptance, or denial. And then I think after that, and maybe in that process, you'll have to decide what improvements would have to be made, if any. You've got several options that you can take. In fact, you could either just not accept the proposal, or you could, the second option would be to suggest that they bring the infrastructure up to a certain standard, and then you would accept it. Or you could suggest that the property owners would finance the improvements or come up with a mechanism whereby the city may do some of the work, but the residents finance the work. It could be done, for instance, by a special tax. So there are several options that you would have at that time once we present the preliminary plat to you.
Well, I'm not sure if we're tasked by committing the city in spending any kind of money, right? That's obvious.
Correct. So to answer your question, your responsibilities today are to listen should you choose to.
I just want to make sure that's the case because there's quite a bit of money tied into this, but there's also residents that live in that place and they need the fire, they need the water, they need all that.
Correct.
But again, somebody's going to have to figure out how we're going to finance that. So I'll be more than happy to review and listen to it. So is that all you have? Good, thank you. And you are the applicant, I believe? Good afternoon to you, sir. We'll be happy to hear from you. If you would state your name and address for the record. And you should understand that we are very sympathetic to your case. I'm not sure if I can help you with much today, but let's go ahead and get started.
Hello. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know I can do that. Can I do that yours and hers or
No,
anybody else?
actually, you cannot do mine, but you
All right.
control that mic as well. So if you hit that button, then that mic will turn
Go
on.
ahead, please.
My name is Scott Hallman. I live at 2499 West Calder Road, which is on the east, would be the southeast corner of the A.J. Fasulo proposed plat there. So just to clarify on the ditch, the three roads and the ditch that is even with the dark black line that you'll see in the southern quadrant there,
Yes, sir.
that's what originally was owned by A.J. Fasulo. Okay, so to that line is where I'm representing the property owners of that. From that black line south to Baker Road actually belongs to an individual that his home is on the southeast corner of that plat, which he faces Baker there. And so that little section right there, of course, we don't own it. We can't give it. You know what I mean? But we're trying to negotiate with the guy to give it because the city engineer thought they might need that for the drainage. You know, to get the drainage right, they wouldn't be able to stop right there. They'd have to bring it all the way to Baker to make it drain correctly. This subdivision, I've been studying a lot of them, and this is a very unique situation because the owner of all this land in the beginning was A.J. Fasulo, okay? And he had this grand idea that he was going to buy this giant piece of land, subdivide it, sell it to people to build homes on, you know. He proposed plats. He did propose plats with the zoning department years ago before he died. They were turned down. I don't know why. I don't know what the reasoning was. My only guess is that the roads were in poor condition. Same thing we're facing right now. So the situation, though, in my opinion, could have been completely stopped. He bought the piece of property. He submitted the plat for approval. It was denied. He continued to break up the land and sell it off. And no one was made aware that, hey, you're moving into an illegal subdivision where you're not going to have streets and drainage, right? So everybody just follow law. We're getting building permits to build houses because we need tax revenue. And now A.J. Fasulo's gone. No one owns the roads. And now we're left to deal with it. And we don't have that kind of money. But there have been residents living out here since the 50s that have been paying taxes every year. And we take their money, we go fix other people's roads and ditches. Now, the biggest issue for the city of Beaumont here, I realize, is money. I mean, I understand you got to come up with the money to do it. But we're all paying taxes, and we should all be getting the same services everybody else is getting, you know. But the main thing to me is that the flooding situation out there is getting worse, and it's getting worse by the year. And eventually, we're going to start affecting other subdivisions that are next to us on either side of us. So then you got people that are flooding, and it ain't their fault. You know what I mean? And in my opinion, it's not our fault either, because we bought these homes under good faith. You would think if it was a legal situation that we would have had to sign something that said, hey, I know I'm moving into a legal subdivision, I don't care, you know, but none of that exists, you know, so we just bought them. Some of us bought land out there, went through the proper channels, got our permit, built our homes, and now here we are, you know, and we have nowhere else to turn. I mean, we've got 5 to 6 residents that retired on fixed incomes. They can't go out and take out a loan for $100,000, and they certainly can't afford to pay more on their taxes every year. And our taxes go up every year, even though the roads diminished cause our actual property tax, our actual property to go down. You know, no one wants to buy a house where they gotta beat themselves to death to get home every day in their truck, you know, and here we are, you know, we're in a bad situation. But if the first property would have been turned down and that person would have went back to A.J. Fasulo and said, look, I can't get a permit to build a house. You're going to have to give me my money back. This would be a wide open field, and none of us would be having this conversation right now. No one would live there because you couldn't build. But we allowed them to build. There's 12 houses out there now, 2 more lots that can be built on. And I guarantee if they file for a permit tomorrow, they'll get it. And they'll build another house. And guess what you do when you build a house? You build it up. So you cause more flooding problems. So this problem could get worse. It could get worse. I thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Holloman. I'm glad that you're here. The city council can hear you, and your counselor can hear you. So I did tell you that I can speak for the rest of the commission. We're all sympathetic to your problem. It's just we as a body cannot commit city to any expenditures.
I understand.
Please continue visiting with your councilman, and hopefully something's going to come up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I've got a quick question.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you have a homeowners association?
No,
in your
ma'am, we do
12
not. Because the owner.
There's only 12 of y'all out there.
Ma'am, and the owner had passed before I even bought my house. And I bought my house in April of 17, and he was already gone.
Okay, thank
And he
you.
has 3 heirs that have, you know, they don't have the means to take care of this property. They don't even want this property. If it didn't have any houses on it and he passed and no taxes were paid, the city would have already taken it and developed it into a park or whatever.
Thank
know.
you.
Hang on a second. Councilman, you raised your hand.
I did. Does anybody know when this Basula subdivision came within the boundaries of the city of Beaumont? Was it annexed, or was it always part of the city of Beaumont, or do we know?
It was annexed.
It was annexed.
It was annexed.
So the question I have is, when the city of Beaumont annexed Amelia, we took on Amelia, warts and all, and their streets and their drainage was definitely not up to city standards and codes. But we took that all on. And I don't see how this is really a whole lot of difference, but that's just my thinking on that.
Private street.
Thank you. Let me see. Do we have public comments? Okay. Great. So the applicant's done. Any other question from the city? No. Okay. We open the floor for public comment. Anybody that would like to speak for or against, if you please come here and state your name and address so we can make a note of it, and we'll be happy to hear from you.
Thank you for hearing from me. My name is Kevin Atkins. I reside at 2411 West Calder Road. I have probably the newest house out there. We built it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, right after during Harvey, actually. There was never any question, any statements about, you're building an illegal subdivision. The permits were handed out freely. The main point I wanted to say was comment on Mike's question on when this property was annexed in. Hearing, what was it, last year, Scott? Mayor Mouton requested, or she asked the question, at what point in time was that property annexed into the city limits, and why at that time were these roads not included in that to be taken over by the city? And we've never heard any sort of response or answer to Mayor Mouton's question. So just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this case? Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
Pretty good.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry I'm limping, don't ever have knee replacement surgery. But anyway, my name's James Falver, and I live at 2437 West Calder. And me and my wife, we built this house approximately 21 years ago. And we didn't even know it was private till after we had the slab poured and everything. When we found out this was all private, and we would have never even bought the property or moved in there or nothing. And of course, when we built the house, there's all kinds of city of Beaumont inspectors out there approving everything. And it just, all these years, it just seems like we're paying taxes, but we're treated like stepchildren. Nothing is done. Matter of fact, I spend probably $200 to $300 every year buying that white rock and patching the potholes so I don't have to get a front end alignment all the time. But I just think, the fair thing to do is for the city to take it over, but we're not wanting everything done at one time. My main concern, I think everybody else's too, is the drainage, then the streets, then, water and sewer, just a little bit at a time, not all at once. But that's all I got to say. Thank
Do
you.
you have garbage service right now?
Yes, sir, but we have to all of us have to walk our cans out to West Calder. And it's hard on my old knee, but I do it.
Well, you did a good job coming to the podium.
Well, thank you. It's been a year since I had it done, but they say it's 2 years to have full recovery.
All right, sir. Good luck to you.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you for taking your time coming here. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this case? Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
I'm probably the oldest member of the
If you
community.
would state your name and
Oh,
address
I'm
for
sorry.
the record, please.
I'm Rosemary. My maiden name was Fasulo, and my last name now is Fryer. I'm a retired school teacher, 28 years for BISD. I have absolutely no savings. I struggle financially every month. I do, just live in my house. I live in the old Facula house at the front, 2425 West Calder Road. I probably have the most knowledge of the history of this property. I don't know if this will help or not. I was 14 years old when my father purchased this property in 1965. At that time, it was owned by Mr. Payne. It was all fenced in, the entire 11 acres, and he just kept cattle in there. We were told that the roads that are in there now, there were little houses in there owned by Humble Oil Company. Just south, there's a little piece of property can't even see right now what it is. There's a single home there now, a little wood frame home, but that was they called it their oil camp. And that's where their trucks that did the field work and all came in and out and they were taken care of there or whatever. The employees lived in these little homes, and that's why those little roads were in there. Now, at the time my dad bought the property, there were no homes in there, but the roads were still there. I assumed that maybe when Humble Oil Company sold it to Mr. Payne, that those homes were moved, because there are several of them up and down the street in West Calder. I can almost drive down the road and say, that's one of them, that's one of them. And in fact, my dad had to have a lot of bulldozer work done out there when he bought the property, because there were sidewalks and steps that had gone to the houses and that kind of thing. So I can't tell you exactly when or why my parents decided to start selling lots. That was something that wasn't discussed with me. I've lived in 2 different houses out there. I lived at 2435 for many years, and I bought the house at 2425 in 1990. It was repossessed. The owners who had it lost it. So I bought it at that time, and I've lived there since then. So I don't know, if evidently at the time the Humble Oil Camp operated there, it must have been Amelia, Texas. It's called Fig Acres because there used to be a lot of fig trees out there, and there's still some homes down the street that have beautiful fig trees in the backyard. So I have a feeling this property history goes way back to when it was just Amelia. And, then I don't know when Beaumont annexed Amelia or when all that occurred or how it occurred, but maybe that helps explain that part of it to you a little. Other than that, just as Scott said, I don't have the money to fix the roads. If I did, they would be fixed, because I feel like that, my dad owned the property, but I just don't have that kind of money. And my brother doesn't, and my sister certainly doesn't. So it's not that we're not wanting to see things improved out there. It's just that we just financially can't do it. And for years, when my health was better, I got out and filled holes in, and I've done everything I could do, keep tree limbs trimmed and that kind of thing, but that's hard work. And my brother did hire a tree trimming company to come out there, and we had to trim a lot of the trees because the fire truck had to go to the back one evening. He couldn't hardly get under the limbs to get back there. My sister had an emergency. They had to go back there and pick her up and see to her. So there are, some problems out there that really, to me, for safety, especially the fire hydrant. The fire hydrant is out on West Calder in front of my house. It's been there for years. And I believe that's the only one near any of those homes. And on the north side of my house.
You would, the lady's over her 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to grant her some additional time.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, please.
The worst flooding seems to be on the road that's it's parallel to the LNVA canal. Over the years, they just kept filling in with dirt until it's just a little shallow space in the yard now. And the house behind me, 2415, every time we get a good, strong thunderstorm, that water is getting up right to her foundation now. And luckily, my house is on 1.5 acres, so it hasn't gotten that close to my house yet, but that's starting to concern me. So, but I guess that's all I have to say, unless you have any questions
Well,
for
thank
me.
you very much. I'm glad you're here and the city council can hear you.
Yes,
Thank you very much, ma'am.
you're welcome.
Have a good afternoon. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this case? None is heard, so we close the public hearing. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next case. If I can find it here somewhere. Okay, 2023-233 is tabled, and we're going to go 2023-262, please.
Okay. File 2023-262 is a request for a specific use permit to allow a mother-in-law's apartment in a residential single-family district. Andrew Balmer is requesting a specific use permit to allow a mother-in-law's apartment at 4630 Ashdown Street. The property is located within the residential single-family dwelling district, and as such, a two-family dwelling requires a specific use permit. The structure will serve as a dual purpose as the pool house for the property. Nicola and Ivan Holtzman, owners of the property, would like to move Nicola's elderly parents into the apartment. The spare bedroom in the house is upstairs, and her mother cannot climb stairs. The pool house will be a one-story structure. Staff recommends approval of this request with the following conditions. No separate utility meters be allowed for the apartment. Number 2, the apartment shall not be used as rental property. And number 3, no permanent structure or appurtenances shall be placed within the easement property. We sent notices to property owners within 200 feet. We sent out 28 notices. We haven't received any responses in favor or in opposition of this request. And I do have some slides to show you. The property outlined in red is the property in question, the subject property. This is a site plan that was submitted showing where the new pool house would be located on the property. Just a closer aerial shot of the property so you can see how the existing building sits. This is the subject property from the street. This is property to the east, to the south, and to the west. And that is all I have for you. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Edina? Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant in the audience? Well, good afternoon. Either one of you, welcome.
Hi, thank you for seeing us.
Good afternoon, sir. If you would be kind enough to state your name and address for the record.
I'm Ivan Holtzman, and I live at 4630 Ashdown.
All right. You'd really want your mother-in-law to live next to you?
Well, let me explain. Let me tell you. You know, yes.
I was
My
just asking
father-in-law
questions.
right there, raise your hand.
All right.
He's, you know, my wife is an only child. And in fact, my father-in-law has been my father longer than my father was my father, so.
Well, your wife made you, right? Okay,
Sure,
let's go.
okay. Anyway, she's an only child. You know, he doesn't look it, but he's 87 years old. And he looks great, but it's time to move him a little bit closer where we can, I guess, keep an eye or at least be able to offer assistance when needed. You know, there's plenty of room back there.
Good.
And that's, do I need to say, I mean,
You're not going to have an additional driveway coming to this, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay, it's not showing on your drawing, and there's no room for it either. I just want to make sure that there's no additional driveway. Okay. Any questions for the gentleman?
Do you understand the 3 conditions?
Absolutely.
Just want to make sure you're.
My father's an engineer, so the easement part is easy. He's already done that, and we won't rent it out. And the other one, that's not a problem.
Perfect. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We now open the floor for public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for or against this case? None is heard, so we'll close the public hearing. We heard from this.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Well, we're gonna have to hear from you. Good afternoon, sir.
Just wanted to primarily say
If
thanks.
you would state your name and address for the
Andrew
record.
Ronald Ballmer, I go by Ronald. I live at 335 Summerwood Street in Beaumont. Been in Beaumont for 45 years. The daughter called us one day and said, "Would you like to move closer to us so we can keep an eye on you?" And I says, "Well, why not?" So this is where we started. And I'd like to thank the city or the planning people, Andrea, Edina, for helping me to file the papers to get me this far. She went, when you were changing, you're closed down when I first applied, and then we went to all computers, and we got everything integrated, and I got a great amount of help from the planning department. I would like to thank them.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this case? None is heard, so we'll close the public hearing. We've heard from the staff, and we heard from the applicant, and he does understand the conditions, so I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with 3 conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? The ayes have it. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. You can send us home.
Sina,
Ma'am?
I'm sorry. We need to state for the record that file PZ 2023-233 was tabled till next month.
Yes,
think
ma'am.
you
We
did
did
mention
say
it.
that, but we didn't say next month. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. Good afternoon. Meeting is now adjourned.
All right.
That's poor people. I mean, what do you do? And, yeah, I know it. Who's gonna pay $250,000? No, 500. 505.
Why wouldn't it have been annexed?